US Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
The New England Free Jacks, Major League Rugby champions. One-on-one to score.
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hey everybody, welcome to US Rugby Happy Hour Live. This is our first show of season 4. Well, technically our second, since we kind of took this whole new moving pictures thing for a ride last week. But this is actually our first real show with a real guest. And speaking of our real guest, in just a few minutes, the new USA Women's head coach, Sione Fukofuka, joins us. So stay tuned for that. I am pumped to talk to him about the future of the women's program and his goals going forward and such. So with that said, we are streaming live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even my own personal LinkedIn account. So if you're happen to be tuning into my personal LinkedIn account, you'll find it there. So, so anyway, when you're on there, give it a chance. Please like, subscribe, or follow us. And don't be afraid to leave comments. With that said, I am Bill Baker of Eagles Overseas. And with me, as always, is my co-host, John Fitzpatrick. Hey, Fitzy.
Hey, Bill. I guess I'm the other guy on the intro.
Other guy.
Which I love.
Yeah, the other guy. When we go through contract negotiations for the next season, we'll talk about maybe having more like your real name.
Well, I got a lot of aliases. I got creditors after me. So the other guy works perfectly for me.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. By the way, you're looking good. I do like the collars, and I like the old, what's that? The old USA, like Olympic rugby logo. What is that? Like
the 1920s, 1924 Olympic crest, All-American crest. But you asked me to wear a collared shirt today. I thought this is what you meant. I didn't think you were going to put on a blazer and a button down.
Well, actually, I dumbed it down a little bit for you. I had a nice tie to go with it too.
Oh,
it's got some old, rugby stuff on there. This is like the first time my wife ever bought me. It's a Tommy Hilfiger
Christmas gift.
Not for my kids. Hey, a quick note for those listening in over on LinkedIn. Instagram Live. Again, this is kind of one of our first times of doing this, streaming everywhere. So right now, if I get to the side a little bit, you can see my head, or the other way. It's a little squeeze. So everybody squeeze towards the middle so they can see us a little more. Okay. We'll try to figure that out. If we don't have it figured out by tonight, we'll have it figured out by the next show. So hopefully our guest tonight doesn't have 1,000 people back home watching on Instagram Live.
Those Americans are trying to figure out rugby. They're trying to figure out Instagram Live. One of these days they'll get it.
Will we though? Will we?
Yes, Bill. Yes. Yes. We got just the person who can help us on the women's Eagles side.
We do. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. All right, let's get right into it. Our guest is waiting. If you guys have seen all the marketing we've been doing on all social media, we spend thousands of dollars per show. If you've seen him, you've seen this popping up. All right, and with that said, our guest tonight, he's made the brave decision to leave the Queensland summer for the Colorado winter. I mean, he must really want this gig. Let's all welcome Sione Fukofuka. Sione, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. You're right. Brisbane to Denver is a big change, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got to say, I mean, you must have a young family. I mean, young enough at least to not question your decision to come to Colorado. Like a teenager would be like, no, Dad, I want to stay where it's warm.
Yeah, I have 4 kids under 6, or 6 and under, I should say. So a bit of compliance at the moment. To be honest, the bribery was around the snow and the winter. To be honest, we hadn't had that obviously in Brisbane. We don't get a lot of snow in Queensland, so we sold the adventure. Come to the US, see snow, learn new things. So far, so good. The boys are loving it.
Nice. And if someone hasn't said it yet, welcome to the United States. I'm sure they have. Maybe the person picked you up at the airport.
To be honest, it's been great. I've had a fantastic welcome. The staff here at USA Rugby and all the players that I've spoken to over the probably last 4 weeks that I've had an opportunity to. Really enjoying the initial transition from Australia to the US.
Okay. Before we dive into your role, we want to talk about your role as a leader of this women's program. goals going forth and such. Let's talk about that decision. I'm assuming a family decision for you to make this move to, a different hemisphere away. So talk about that decision. I mean, it could not have been easy for you.
No, not at all. I've been teaching for just under 20 years and coaching on the side. And the last few years have had lucky enough to have opportunities to coach first grade men, which is semi-professional in Australia, some representative teams, and then more recently the Wallaroos. But when this particular opportunity came up, what was exciting about it was a full-time role and an opportunity to work professionally with some of the best women in the world.
Right.
Lots of tours and throws with my family, obviously, around what that would look like, moving countries, leaving our support network and leaving what we knew to somewhere very, very different. And I'm really lucky. I have a very, very supportive wife, and my kids are at that age where it's exciting. They get an opportunity now to grow up for a period of time in a new country and learn something new. And we're very big, both teachers, very big on having an opportunity to learn and grow in different environments. And that's exactly what this is going to bring. But it wasn't an easy decision. However, it was an exciting one, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And, for those not aware of your background, I mean, Fitzy and I, believe it or not, we know everything about you. So not even a problem. Our crack researchers here at USA or US Rugby Happy Hour Live know everything. But for those who don't, talk a bit about your rugby background, playing days a bit, but mostly your coaching and teaching skills as well.
Yeah, well, that's easy. My playing days, to be honest, weren't great. I was an okay player. I had the chance to play in a couple of countries, spent some time in Wales, but predominantly played grade rugby in Brisbane. I'm the product of a Kiwi mother and a Tongan father, so I was born into rugby. I distinctly remember watching the '87 World Cup and it was hooked ever since. So it's been in my blood. As I said, I would have loved to, I don't think I was a great player and I would have loved to have played higher, but that wasn't to be. Luckily enough, obviously there's other areas of the game that you can contribute. And I guess parallel to my teaching, coaching became an opportunity quite young. I think I started coaching when I was about 18, as well as playing. And then I was lucky in around was the mid 2000s to start working at a school in Brisbane called Brisbane State High School. Have a lot of very successful, very famous alumni that have come through the Wallabies, the Australian Sevens program, and so on. And through working with those athletes and developing my coaching, I've had the opportunity to get roles, to learn, develop, and keep, I suppose, traveling along the pathway from a amateur to semi-professional to now a full-time professional coach. So what I've really enjoyed along my journey in particular, if you like, is I've had the opportunity to coach the full spectrum, school kids through to teenage years, all the way through to colts into seniors, both men and women, as well as girls and boys across both 7s and 15s. So I kind of have hit, I guess, all elements of the game, so to speak. And what I'm excited about in this opportunity is I get to do that and get to work with a different country, obviously, but also a different culture and learn a little bit from the players that I'm coaching as well. And that's exciting because being in rugby for as long as I have and being involved in the game itself, it's always exciting to learn new things from other players and other people. And hopefully I bring a little bit of what I've learned along the way to help the Eagles to some success.
Yeah, Sione, as we start to talk a little bit about USA Rugby, just hearing about your past rugby playing experience and coaching experience, growing up in Australia, did you ever think your rugby journey was going to take you to the US?
No, definitely not. I'll be honest. I was pretty comfortable, pretty happy where I was. I was in, so I've had the chance to coach, as I said, 7s and 15s across the pathway, some youth girls stuff to some development men's Australian stuff. And, I was relatively happy with the path that I was on. Within the Wallaroos set up for the last 2 years, I'd like to think I left the program in a better position, but, we developed our group and more recently in the WXV1, we were able to beat France, and that was an exciting time. But I guess the opportunity to lead a country, and especially a country that has such a great tradition and a history in 15s, was something that I thought I'd put my hand up for. I have to be honest, I didn't think I would end up in this role. I'm excited that I am, and I'm very, very blessed to be in this position. But yeah, I didn't think I'd be in the US, to be honest. If between you and I thought I would still be in the Australian system, contributing there. But yeah.
Yeah, just more than anything, right? Like growing up, you're playing rugby, you're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And, rugby in the US, that's like, what is that? But obviously there's been some great strides in not only the men's and women's program, but certainly professional rugby here in the US. And we'll chat about that in a bit. But speaking a little bit more on the hiring process, when USA Rugby began the process for hiring the new Women's Eagles head coach, did they approach you, or was it something that you saw and applied for? How did that all kind of come together?
Yeah, funny story actually. I don't know if I should let out all the secrets, but I did see it advertised, and in actual fact, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble, but my application was late. It was closed before I'd applied, so I was lucky enough to have a couple of contacts who confirmed that that there was an opportunity to still put my application in. But no, it was definitely something that I had put my hand up for. I looked at the role description, and as I kind of alluded to before, a lot of the key elements to that role description, coach pathway, player pathway, 7s, 15s, were areas that I'd spent a lot of time in Australia and felt like I was a pretty good candidate for. So yeah, when I finally got it together and submitted it, they accepted it. I think it was about 24 hours late. So very lucky, I should say.
Wait, Fitz, let me jump in real quick.
Yeah.
I think there was second life, Sione, you were a football player and should have been maybe a football coach. So because we're doing our digging today, we found this. Doesn't quite look like you. Got the name right. What's he, 6 foot? How tall are you?
Yeah, definitely not 6'5", that's for sure. The beautiful thing is coming to America, the Fukofuka surname is out and about. I think I have a cousin that's playing baseball as well, or a second cousin. So yeah, some great Googling there.
Well, Bill, it's funny. Sorry, it's funny you mentioned the players from rugby union coming to play in the NFL. There's been a number of Australians who've made that transition. I think that probably the biggest name more from rugby league is Jordan Matala, right? The left tackle for the Eagles. And certainly I think we're all excited to see what Louis Rees-Zammit is going to do, in a couple of years. But there's certainly that connection there for rugby players crossing codes on over to football. But yeah, I mean, we looked that up. We saw that in our research, and I said, Bill, there's no way, right? That's not him.
To be honest, when I did go to Wales, the club that recruited me over there, when I went over to play, this is years ago, when I got off the train from London and was picked up, the person that picked me up looked me up and down and said, "I thought you'd be taller." So,
I get that all the time. No, but sorry, Bill. Moving on, I just wanted to chat a little bit more. You talked a little bit about the process for USA Rugby. Share with us a little bit about maybe the vision that you shared with USA Rugby about how far you can or how far you want to take the women's Eagles over the next few years.
Yeah, I guess what I spoke about in the interview process was as an opposition coach and a fan of rugby. I suppose looking at the US program and looking at the players, there's this massive positive in the physicality of the group. There's an athleticism and a power within the group that in 2022 overcame us in New Zealand, and then obviously last year in Canada we were able to outplay the Eagles. But there's a huge potential there to get a few things right and to obviously reset, I guess, the program so that it's climbing back up the world rankings. I haven't been necessarily involved in coaching the women's game for a long time, but as a fan of rugby, I understand the history of the women's game, where New Zealand, England, and the US were the standard bearers for a long time. So what I spoke to them about is that there's this there is a transition within the US programming coming in. Last year in particular in Canada, there are a couple of young Polynesian girls that made their debut. So there's a change in the guard in terms of players that are looking to play. There's generational families that have been in the US now for 20, 30 years whose kids are coming through, and it's an exciting time. And when you add that to the experience of players like your Kate Zachary's and your Rachel Johnsons of the world, and there's more. It's for me, it's an exciting time. If you can get a few things right and manage that transition, then it's an exciting time to build a really good platform into 25. And then obviously that new wave of player coming through leads into 2029, then the home World Cup after that. So I guess what I spoke about is the opportunity to use the skill set of what American players do really well, and then bring some of my knowledge and some of my experience to the attacking side of the game. So we want to be quite a physical team, because that's something that when you think of, you mentioned it before, like the transition from rugby to NFL isn't a huge one in terms of the expectation of physicality, because that's why we play. We love that contact. Obviously, there's a whole lot more detail to that, so please don't jump down my throat around how easy it's going to be. I think we all know how challenging it's going to be for Lewis Rees-Zammit, but at the same time, the physicality in the sports here, like, apparently basketball is non-contact, but if I watch the NBA and I watch the basketball, all of those guys get as hard as rugby players. So owning that and having that as the foundation, it was a big part, and then building on that, increasing our rugby IQ, a little bit of game management and skill set is an exciting element to the women's game and where it can go. So those are the key foundation points that I spoke about in the process.
So one of the key issues, I would say issues, in our country, when do you accept the position? For some reason in my mind, I heard them saying, yeah, but do you know how big the U.S. is? Is this something, as you look more into it, is this something that maybe intimidates you a little bit about covering all this ground and the way things are made up, the way that youth rugby, college rugby, the Women's Premier League, all this stuff made up? Are you ready for that?
I guess so. Yeah. I don't know if intimidate's the right word. Like, I recognize the challenge. Australia is not a small country in itself. Obviously, less people and less amount of states, but the remote program that we ran with the Wallaroos, which is obviously something that's very similar here in the States, is something I've had experience with. And I spoke to that obviously around what that looked like and how we can best overcome some of the challenges. I guess now being here and having a bit of time in the seat to speak to players, speak to staff, the extent to the scope of the challenge is now a lot more real, because I think in addition to what you mentioned, you also have to add in the 22 players that are over in the UK, because that's another layer that's on top of the challenge here in the US itself. But I've used this word a lot, and please check back in with me in 6 months and 12 months time, and hopefully I'm in the same set. But what it shows me when you do pare a lot of that stuff back, the challenge is massive, don't get me wrong, but so too is the opportunity. The number of players playing in high school, playing in college, playing across the country is one of the major benefits and strengths of the country. The fact that that in this country you have a U18s, a U20s, and a U23 women's program is light years ahead of where the Australian development pathway is. I guess from my point of view, and I'll name drop him here, like in conjunction with Brandon Sparks, who's come on as high performance manager, our challenge is to link those parts together and make sure that we're giving opportunities for the best players to play across that Eagles pathway. So to answer your question, I wouldn't say intimidating, but I do understand it's a huge challenge. The good thing is that with not only Brandon, but with Tamara Shepherd coming on board, that the people in those key positions are important people, but also people with the right skill sets. Brandon's been fantastic from a USA Rugby point of view. I've learned more from him in the last 2 weeks, to be honest, than from the previous 8 weeks of Googling and searching and trying to find out as much information as possible. A little bit similar to yourselves. Sometimes those Google searches end up slightly down a different path than where you started.
We found.
Yeah.
So did you know Tamara because she was at Australia swimming, correct?
Yeah. So to be honest, no. It's one of those strange things. Like Brisbane's not a big place, especially when it comes to sport. But we had travelled in similar circles, but never had met. I met her for the first time in Brisbane, I think 2 weeks before I was offered the role. So she obviously was the final stage of the vetting process of the particular role. But as it turns out, I know a number of people that she does. It's just Brisbane in itself, but then Australian sport isn't particularly vast when it comes to those top levels of state and national teams. So,
how long have you been on the job so far?
Yeah, well, officially or unofficially. So officially, officially, I guess, sitting down and actually starting, the planning process and the work through it was around the start of November. So we finished up WXV, and about a week later, I transitioned into this role, whereby it was a lot of discovery, a lot of conversations with the previous staff, which, by the way, they have been fantastic and being open and sharing. All of the people that I've met in USA Rugby so far want the program to do well and have been, fantastic with their time, but also with sharing their experience. And then I've spent a fair bit of time over the last 2 weeks before Christmas, and then starting this week in having player one-on-one meetings. I will say it's a lot easier to have those meetings in the US than it was in Brisbane with the 16, 17-hour time difference. But they've been fantastic. I think I've hit about 48, 49 players at this point, with a number still to come, obviously. But really, really pleased with the reception that I've got, absolutely, but also with the attitude of the players. I think similar to the staff, there's a definite want for USA Women's Rugby to do well. The players want it. And they're excited about the opportunity for a full-time coach, obviously, coming in, but also a shift in the program moving forward.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the interviews that you're having, or the one-on-ones, 48, I guess. I guess that includes also probably the wider player pool. Thinking back to trying to make the connection here, when you were coaching against the USA in your role with the Wallaroos, were there certain maybe qualities about the Women's Eagles and how they play that stood out to you, where you were like, you know what, if we can build off of this is how we can push this program forward? What were some of those qualities? And then, how does it link up to what you were hearing from the players when you're doing these one-on-ones?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, and I touched on it earlier, was just this level of physicality. Mm-hmm. When we played the Eagles in Auckland in New Zealand in 2022, we lost by 2 points. And throughout the entire game, I was confident that we would find an opportunity and would win. But what stood out to me in that particular game was this level of physicality. They won the breakdown, they won the collisions, they dominated our scrum, I think, in that particular game. And there was just this grit and determination to stay in the contest. And, watching the games over the last 12 months through World Cup and some of the others, even though the results they haven't necessarily gone their way, there's a definite grit and competitiveness that's exciting, because it's one of those things where you can teach all the skills in the world, but the two areas when it comes to rugby that have a massive impact on it is the ability to keep the ball and win the ball, and then to stay connected and stay in the fight, so defensively. And I think that comes through in spades in the US program. So what I was excited about is harnessing that, adding obviously what I think I bring to the game, and then building on that, adding a level of skill, a level of tactical decision making that can exploit space that's there that hasn't quite been achieved just yet.
You mentioned something about I think it was the press release from USA Rugby quoted you as saying you want to bring a level of professionalism. I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but professionalism and leadership to the program. Discuss that professionalism. What do you exactly mean by that? Is it a mindset? Is it a goal to get domestic professional and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, 100%. I think from the outset, so first and foremost, I'm in a position now where I'm a full-time professional coach driving and leading the program. So there's a level of continuity and expectation that comes with that. That is a standard, I guess, of expertise and of organisation and professionalism, just through having that consistent person driving and organising. Then you kind of layer onto that idea of what high performance is. And high performance is about keeping key standards, key principles that allow performance. So ideally, as we move forward, 24, 25 and beyond the next World Cup cycle, there would be that opportunity for the women here in the US to play professionally, so that the players that are overseas, the players that are in England playing their trade, and that's a fantastic opportunity for them, but they come home and they play their trade in the US, so young players can actually see them firsthand. They can compete against them and learn how to be professionals and how to be the best they can be against US Eagles playing in the WPL. Ideally, that would be it. Then you add in, obviously, the layer around management and so on. But when I talk about professionals, I talk about those key standards and that level of accountability. Performance, obviously, and results below that, but it's also those non-negotiables within our training environments, within our preparation, within our individual work. That's important, that you don't see, but has a huge impact on how you play on the weekend. And one of the best quotes that I've ever had shared with me was this is when I was coaching a high school team, but basically it was along the lines of, nobody outside of the inner sanctum sees the work that's put in from Monday to Friday. So it's really important and almost imperative that what you do on Saturday reflects the work that you've done during the week. And it's stood with me that, all of those hours where nobody's watching, or only the inner workings of the team actually know what's being put in, comes out on Saturday in a performance that you're proud of. And when I talk about professionalism, I'm talking about those key behaviors that help to build that.
But you mentioned a second ago, earlier, about the other professionalism, hopefully domestic professional leagues at 1 year or soon. Are you hearing anything on the inside, or something you can share with us? Is that going to happen sooner than later? Is that a possibility sooner?
To be honest, no. As in, I haven't heard anything. I know that that's one of the goals going forward. I do know that Brandon as high performance manager and Tamara obviously is the overall high performance, have that as part of their planning. But I'll be honest with you, my immediate focus personally is on the initial startup and setup of the Eagles program leading into 24 and then 25. But I'll go back and reiterate the point. It's something that's important. Having players play in their own league is huge, and potentially, if a few things go right and that league absolutely is in a position to launch as a professional league, then we attract other international players, and that's where you can see with the MLR, that's where the excitement comes. Not only your own homegrown players playing their trade here, and there are some fantastic women's Eagles, but also attracting those players from overseas who potentially don't want to play in England because it's cold and wet, and there's an opportunity to play somewhere which is a little bit nicer. I know from my experience with Super W, international players in the last 2 years in the Super W competition have lifted the competition standard, and it's been a good thing for the Wallaroos, and it's definitely been a good thing for rugby in Australia. So fingers crossed with Brandon and Tamara and the work that they do behind the scenes, and obviously with a bit of support financially. Obviously corporate is an area that we need a bit of help with. Nothing in this professional scape comes cheap. So hopefully over the next 6 to 12 months, firstly, the Eagles can play a style of rugby that's attractive but also successful, and generate some of that interest, in the women's game, because it is important that we get that support corporately and financially to be able to then build. Because ideally, in addition to this, you'd also like your best players contracted centrally, and you'd be able to support them in a position where USA Rugby contracts, and then they're playing within their WPL clubs, contributing back to the wider program, and then allowing that development pathway to be a tangible path for a young girl that's playing rugby at the moment in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the year ahead, 2024. What does the calendar look like in terms of the number of matches that are on the table, right? So I think Pacific 4 competition, WXV2, one-off matches. What is the calendar shaping up to look like so far in 2024?
So, yeah, it's pretty exciting, to be honest. At this point in time, if everything is confirmed, and some of that lies in the hands of World Rugby, who are very supportive, but obviously they have a bit of organising and some work to do around that, then it looks like there'll be 9 test matches with one potential A game in there as well. As extra A games within that program. But if you're selection, then by the end of 2024, you'll have played.
Yeah, sorry, Sam, I think we might have lost you there for a second, but yeah, actually, we don't hear you at all right now. But
I can hear. I can hear now.
Oh,
I think you're. Yeah, I can hear you now, Bill.
Am I the one?
Sorry, mate.
Last season, there were a couple of shows where people said they couldn't hear me, but they can hear everyone else.
I thought USA Rugby cut his mics. They were like, "No, don't give away this calendar yet."
Anyway,
I don't know where you lost me, but it's not top secret. But basically, 10 international games are on the calendar at this point.
That's great. Yeah,
that's very good and extremely important for the growth of the game. Yeah, let's touch on the player pool real quick, Sione, and we're going to let you go soon. Like you said earlier, a number of the players are playing over in Europe. We've got one Eagles actually playing, just joined the French League, I think is the first one of our group. You said you've been having conversations with them. Can you talk about some of these players? I know you mentioned a few with Kate Zachary and a couple others, but Kate seems to be able to play anywhere. According to her last team, Exeter played her at wing, center, 8. Hope Rogers is one of the best props in the world, and then Rachel Johnson, I never seen her without a smile on her face, even when they're in a losing cause and on the pitch. So, can you talk more about these players? And maybe your excitement about maybe coaching someone like Kate.
Well, I guess the excitement comes with the experience, doesn't it? And it's someone who clearly has a value to the team that the character of the player, of Kate. That's exciting to work with someone who's so experienced, but also so motivated to be successful in an Eagles jersey. Like, she's been successful and she knows what that looks like and feels like. So harnessing that and then transitioning players who unfortunately haven't had the same experiences in the Eagles jersey as to what Kate's had. And, adding to that, you mentioned Hope, like one of the best props in the world, and was out for a number of months with an injury and came straight back in, and within 2 weeks was in the Premiership player team of the week. So huge.
A couple of tries scored too, yeah.
To be honest, when you do the analysis on the US and Hope Rogers is playing, 9 times out of 10 she scores a try from a pick and drive 5 meters out from the try line. Like, she brings value because of what she does each game, as well as her experience. And you made the comment about Rachel. I was standing there in Ottawa as the assistant coach of the Australian team, and like, if there's someone that embodies that never say die attitude and stayed in the game the whole time, it was her. And then after the game, big smile, connecting with some of the players in our team who had played in the Premiership. And that's the beauty of rugby, that although inside you're hurting, there's that connection of, now the battle's done, we can leave the field as peers, I guess. And Rachel embodies that, and having the one-on-one with her was exciting, because she's got a whole lot of energy and excitement about what could be. And that's one of those things where I'm looking to harness the potential and also the optimism of the group, but then align that with some hard work that we know has to happen. And the beauty of the players that are playing in the Premiership, they see that day in, day out. They're in a daily training environment where they know how hard it is to make things look easy. You look at Exeter, they work really hard, and then you see them on a Saturday and they'll put 60 points on a team, but they do that because of the work they put in. And I guess it's been a bit of a theme of this conversation, but that's what's exciting is that there's not a shirking of the hard work. It's just learning how to do that consistently and then put that out on the field, and that's a big thing. So the player pool itself is, when you talk about the top end of the player pool, you've got your more experienced players, but when you look a little bit wider, then you've got some really exciting young players coming through as well. And I'll be honest, the third layer to that then becomes a sevens program, and some of the players that have crossed over, like WXV was fantastic. Mata Hingano, Sarah Levi.
Oh yeah.
Who else was going forward is having that alignment and collaboration with the sevens program is exciting. It's just making sure we give opportunities for them to develop along the pathway. And we talked about the 10 games. The 10 games are really important because it does give us a number of opportunities to play players that potentially haven't been seen. But what comes with that is opportunities to bring players into that daily training environment in the lead up. So to have those intensive camps, to have those selection camps, to really put people under pressure and put them in an environment where maybe they haven't been in before, that intensity and that level of detail. And that's what I'm excited about. By the end of 2024, we should have a really good understanding of our top 35 to 40 players leading into a World Cup year.
Well, I'd love to see Alev Kelter back in a 15s jersey. When she played with Saracens, I think it was, she just killed it. So
Yeah,
make a note.
I would love to see the same. And coincidentally, when I get off this particular podcast, I'm actually going into a call with Alev. So great research that you've done there.
There you go. We'll put a good word for her. Obviously, she needs our help.
But you've seen that in the past. When the Eagles have been successful, there's been that alignment between the sevens programs. Kate played sevens and obviously 15s. Alev's been across both programs and a number of other players. So, from my point of view, it's exciting that Emily's open to that particular conversation and the potential for it to be a collaborative relationship and successful. I think the beauty of sevens is there's that focus of core skill, athleticism and speed, and some of what we'll need going forward in the Eagles program is exactly that. So, again, I'll use that word exciting. It's exciting at the potential. So now it's my job to make sure that we align those things and make sure we get them right.
Well, Bill, you may remember a couple of weeks ago when we had Ilona Marr, from USA 7. She talked about how
she wants to play 15th.
Yeah, her focus is on Paris, but after that, she has got an eye potentially at the Rugby World Cup in 2025. So I'm sure that's a name you're chatting with as well in that player pool. So you don't need to share any details unless you want to.
I do think I have to lift my social media game and potentially join TikTok before I around that.
She taught us how to trend on social media.
Well, she's doing a great job at it. It's all over my feed, that's for sure.
So listen, we're gonna wrap it up here with last two comments. One quick question, and Fitz, I'm jumping on your toes here. I apologize. I think you wanted to say something else, but at the end of 24. This just 1 year for you. What would equate success for you in the program?
Okay, so 3 things. So firstly, our percentage of success around those KPIs that matter in a game. So for me, those are our defensive tackle success percentage, our set piece percentage, and our ability to convert inside 22 pressure into points. So if those 3 things have improved and are at world-class standard, then the next element to the end of 2024 is that we have been in positions to win games and we've converted those. Ideally, we go into Pack 4 and we qualify for World Cup. And out of that, if we qualify for World Cup in Pack 4, then we're a potential chance of qualifying for WXV1. If we don't qualify for WXV1, then we finish at the top of WXV2. So those are the, I suppose, outcome goals to it. From a process point of view, I kind of mentioned it earlier, at the end of 24, I want a clear idea of who my top 35 to 40 players are leading into a World Cup year. The player pool at the moment is quite extensive. It's a wide player pool, and that's fantastic because we get the opportunity to learn a lot about some players that potentially haven't been given an opportunity in the past. But the reality is you've got, at best, 2 years to prepare for a World Cup, and we've got that now. So the first year is around laying foundation and finding out who are our top 40 players before we turn the corner into 25. I think if we get those 3 key things in place, then we can turn into 25 pretty confident that our World Cup's going to be a positive experience, and we're going to put ourselves in a position to do well.
Awesome. I've got one final question for you, and this is not a gotcha question here, but tread carefully here, okay? There could be a scenario, and we're hoping this happens, in Paris at the Olympics where the USA women's sevens are going to meet the Australian women's sevens team in the gold medal final. Who are you going to be cheering for?
I think that's probably a question you should ask my son. My son was a little bit heartbroken, to be honest, because he's been a Wallaroo supporter for the last 2 years, thick and thin. And then when he found out that we were Eagles, he didn't know how to take it. So to answer your question, I'll be cheering the Eagles, to be honest. I'm invested. I'm really enjoying what Emily's doing with the sevens program. I'm hopefully going to be up there in a couple of weeks to have a look firsthand at how a US women's rugby team works and trains and behaves around each other. So yeah, I'll be cheering them. Obviously, a number of the Australian girls I've had the opportunity to coach. And, you know, for the US to beat them, they'll have to be at their best. But if they're good enough to beat them, I'm 100% cheering behind the Eagles. And at the end of the game, we'll shake hands with the Aussies and commiserate. But no, I think one thing that my family and I spoke about is if we're coming here, we're all in. We're red, white, and blue. So definitely in behind Emily and the USA Eagles.
It's not to say he won't have a gold shirt underneath his Eagles jacket.
I don't know if you got time, but to share this, my mum's a Kiwi, an All Blacks supporter her whole life, a Blackburn supporter. So when we were at the World Cup and played the first game at Eden Park, she had her Wallaroos jersey on, but it was covered by 2 layers of black jackets over the top. So first half, when we were doing pretty well, I'm pretty confident. There were a couple of photos there where the gold started to make its appearance, but as soon as unfortunately for us, as soon as the Blackburns got on top, the black jacket came back over the top, and she was quite happy again as a Kiwi. So
that's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, so listen, we really appreciate your time. We're really excited to get you on this show and to find out everything you just told us tonight. Good luck in the future, and we're looking forward to get you back on here again soon.
Thank you for having me. I think just excited to talk rugby, but also women's rugby. And I've been following you since I signed on, and you do a great job at providing a platform for women's rugby in the US too. So appreciate you having me on, and appreciate the time that you give to the women's part of the game.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Too easy. Thanks, guys.
All right, Fitzy. That was great. Exactly how I thought it would work out. That was awesome. He gave us some great information. I love to talk about the amount of matches coming up this next year, which we kind of had an idea, but it was good to hear that. As kind of get that number and get an idea how many matches we're looking forward to. Now, I'd love to find out eventually, where and when. I'd love to see some matches here on USA soil. So, yeah, I'm excited about it.
I was going to ask him, but we kind of ran out of time and the conversation was flowing. But you may have seen last week the CEO of RFC LA when he was talking about some matches that they're planning at Dignity Health Sports Park or whatever.
Yeah.
He said that there's chatter about a doubleheader about the USA Women's Eagles taking on Canada in LA. So that would be awesome. I think June, July, I may have that date wrong or something like that, but that would be amazing. Road trip. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah, it's fun. The future looks good, and I'm glad. I think it's a great hire by USA Rugby.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing more, seeing what he could do. It's good to finally have a full-time head coach and not an interim head coach.
Yeah. And Bill, hats off to you, man. The production value, again, with the video and the cutbacks back and forth, and you're wearing a jacket. Man. The sponsors are going to come knocking on the door, man. I'm telling you.
I know. Well, we got some good comments in here, too. We got, someone actually asked late in the show on YouTube, asking if there's any possibility of an exhibition match versus the box, but it was so late I couldn't get that on. And
yeah, okay. Yeah.
Rick Meyer, who listens to our show quite often, said keep up the good work. Love the pod. That's awesome.
Thanks, Rick.
Eric Beluski, great show. Thanks, guys. His nickname's Blur, by the way. Great guy. I actually played with him in college, so it's nice to get some
there you go. Oh, there's the reference to you playing rugby. Gotta get in it every show.
Of course. It's all behind me.
I got to work on this background. I got to work on this.
Well, and I do want to apologize to the Instagram listeners, viewers. It is like, you can only see like the middle line between us pretty much and our shoulders. So when we did tests, which is really odd, it was regular, landscape in the middle of the Instagram feed. So we'll have to check that out. We might have to get a professional in here, someone who's like 17. No, it's Instagram. All right, buddy. Let's call it a night. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to US Rugby Happy. We're watching. Sorry, it's always been listening. Now it's watching. All right, I'm gonna button my shirt. I gotta say,
Bill, before you close out, I did like that because in last season when it was just audio, you couldn't see the facial expressions, right? So being able to actually see the face of the person we're talking to, just points are being hit, or if they've got a funny story, something to share that we don't step on their toes. So even though we may not be the most photogenic people, it's good that we're able to at least see our guests.
You just just open your shirt up a little bit and we'll
late night USA Rugby Happy Hour late night.
No, you're right. And that's where the real money is. I've heard. I don't know. I've heard. Yes, we'll keep getting better at this. I'm going to keep working on this stream. Again, for you guys, thank you so much for watching. This whole thing we're doing here is new to us. But it's fun. It's good to actually see. And like you said, joking, every so often we say a joke without seeing them, and we're going to hope they understand that's a joke.
Right.
See faces. Yeah. All right, buddy. Let's call it a night.
It was curious that as he was about to launch the schedule, the Wi-Fi issues started coming up. So
I think there was someone over there at USA Rugby going, no. All right, let's call it a night. Like I just said a minute ago, let's do it again. Thanks, Fitzy. Great job. Everyone else, we will be back on the air next week. Most likely Wednesday night again, as we're going to try to do all the time. If not, we'll let you know if we have a different time and day. Cheers, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.